What up, y'all? So, today I'm going to be talking a little about basically the 10 things I learned my first year cycling. 10 things are kind of essential things you need to know, or things that will save you a lot of time and money and pain while out riding. First thing is bike pick. Do not spend more than $1,000 on your first road bike. Do not spend more than $1,000 on your first road bike. Do not spend more than $1,000 on your first road bike. You don't need disc brakes. You don't need some super light, high-end carbon fiber race bike. Bikes basically they devalue like cell phones, and you got a lot of people, that are trying to sell bikes for really crazy prices. But I recommend getting a endurance bike for your first bike, a carbon fiber endurance bike. If you're serious about cycling, a good base is a carbon fiber road bike that you can find for around $1,000. Endurance bikes are race bikes that are geared more towards comfort than straight up race. So what that means is basically this bike, you will feel less pain on this bike and you'll be able to ride farther, thus get more out of your workouts and be more fulfilled afterwards. And when you're starting, if you jump on a really aggressive race bike, it's gonna hurt. Your ass is gonna fall asleep, your wiener is gonna fall asleep, your hands are gonna fall asleep, your feet are gonna fall asleep. So choosing the right bike when you first start and choosing an endurance bike when you start you'll have a better overall outcome. What I bought was a SL4 Roubaix. Roubaix are specialized road bikes that are geared towards endurance, and they have these things called zerts in them that absorb a lot of the road buzz, so you don't get numb hands as much. You don't feel as much of the road, so you aren't like, when you're a lot, like your hands will go numb and you'll have to stop or something. And these Roubaix are really, really good at absorbing that buzz. They have, and again, for $1,200, this is an S-Works Roubaix. Damn, I might buy this. It's $58 though. So anyway, this is a really good deal. These are Dura-Ace C24 carbon fiber wheels that are decent, light, stiff wheels. It's got Dura-Ace, which is the lightest components. This is a very, 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 very good bike. It's an early one in SL2, probably 2010, around there. Really, really good bike. I also recommend Trek Emonda. If you like Trek is a great bike company. The Emondas, you should be able to find something. All these people asking $2,000, $1,200, they'll all take $1,000 for these bikes. Asking price on Craigslist is usually these dudes are dreaming that when they're asking these prices, but you'll see, old tarmacs are unbelievable bikes for the money. They are better bikes than the bikes that are being built today. They are lighter, stiffer, more affordable. A comparable bike today, $1,000 tarmac. If you tried to buy $1,000 10-year-old tarmac, if you tried to buy a comparable bike today, it would cost possibly $15,000. $20,000. Super crazy. So these older tarmacs, that's a fucking cool bike. That is a cool bike. That are around $1,000 are such good bikes for the money. It's not even funny. Hey, that rhymed. So I highly, highly, highly recommend picking up one of these $1,000 tarmacs or $1,000 Roubaix. Tarmac is going to be a little bit more aggressive. It's not going to be so comfortable, but the Roubaix or the Imondas are really good bikes for the money. Like, I can't even emphasize how much bike you're getting. And then if you find one of these S-Works Roubaix, like, oh, such nice bikes. The S-Works are like the higher end version. If you find one of those, you know, these frames were like $8,500 back in the day. So when you find one of these bikes for $1,000 and you ride it, you're like, man, they're so much better. I went from my Roubaix, which is one of the best bikes ever made, and I went to this tarmac here, which I got for $500. S-Works tarmac. It was like a $10,000 bike back in the day. I got for $500. Going from the tarmac definitely feels a little quicker, a little stiffer, and it's far lighter than the Roubaix. Roubaix is it's not quite, you know, they have the zerts and like they have all this comfort built into them, and the comfort weighs a little bit more, but it's worth it in the beginning. But this S-Works tarmac is ridiculous for $500. When, you know, if I tried to buy a bike that's as light as this right now, it might cost 20 grand. It's just bonkers. So highly recommend not spending more than $1,000 on your first road bike. So upgrades. The next thing I learned, once you get a bike, and if you take it seriously, you'll want to start lightening your bike. This costs a lot of money and you don't get a lot of return. I highly recommend, once you ride a while and you actually like, oh, I like this is like my new thing. If you really like cycling after a month, I would highly recommend upgrading your wheels. All the other little things cost lots of money. Wheels cost a lot of money, but wheels you get your best bang for your buck because you're getting a lighter wheel and a better rolling hub. I had some stock Axis garbage wheels on my Roubaix when I first started cycling, and they were terrible. Riding on terrible wheels your first year is not that big of a deal, because you're not, and buying a bike that's not that light or not even carbon fiber, if you have to buy an aluminum bike that's a little bit heavier, it's okay. It's completely fine, because when your first year riding, you're building up your core fitness, and it really doesn't matter if you're riding a heavier bike with slower hubs, because that's just helping you build your core a little bit more. If you're having to work a little bit harder, you're just kind of, it's like adding weight to your weight training. You're building up your core, you're building up your muscles, and having a slightly heavier bike's not that big of a deal. Like my son, I didn't buy him a carbon bike, I bought him an aluminum bike, because he's 12 and he needs to build muscles. But if you have a heavy bike that has, garbage wheels, you're not going to enjoy the experience of riding more. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. You need to build up your fitness, but you need to still want to be able to ride. So upgrading your wheels is the biggest thing you'll notice when upgrading. And what happens when you upgrade from a garbage wheel is you get a lighter wheel, which means it's less weight you're dragging around, which ultimately you want a light bike because you don't want to have to drag around all that weight, and your perceived effort will be lower if you have a lower bike. But the bigger thing than shedding a couple hundred grams is hub. The hubs are how control basically how fast the wheels spin. And if you have garbage hubs, your wheels don't spin very well, and all the effort you put into pumping your cranks, you're going to get, basically the bike's going to slow down. Like when you're riding, the bike's kind of fighting you because it's not rolling as well as it would with a higher quality hub. I went from garbage axis wheels where I'd spin it and it would go woo. It would just slow down like immediately to a set of mid-range DT Swiss wheels, and I could not believe the difference I felt. I felt like the bike was actually rolling for a long time versus slowing down kind of quickly. It felt like I was just, any obstruction, any gravel or anything, I was just floating over it better. It felt like I was getting more bang for my buck, from the energy I was putting into the bike. So wheels are a really good upgrade if you're once you start taking cycling seriously, wheels are going to be your best upgrade. And all the other stuff is kind of not necessary. If you find deals on Craigslist for things, I highly recommend buying used only in the beginning, for sure, or used only forever. Buying stuff from bike shops is insanely expensive, and the thing is with cycling is that a lot of people got into cycling and didn't stay into it because it is exercise, and so most of the used stuff you come across is hardly used, and so if you have a good eye, you can find these deals. I don't really recommend spending more than $300 in the beginning on a set of wheels. You should be able to find a very nice set of Mavics, or like I said, DT Swiss makes amazing wheels. Don't go all crazy and buy carbon. Like we got wheels here that are $2,500. You absolutely do not buy something like this. You will be paranoid to ride your bike. You'll be worried about cracking them, getting a scratch. They're carbon fiber. They're not steel or aluminum, so they're not going to be as durable. And when you're running a tire that's that big, you have a higher chance of making contact with the ground. So I highly recommend, something like this, some Mavic Crisiums, aluminum, high-end aluminum, nice hubs, stiff wheel, durable, very aero, something like this. Any of these guys selling these wheels for $400 or $500, $600 will take $300 for their wheels. Used wheels, they don't have a warranty. You can't take them in and get them replaced if they're, if you break them. If you buy them from a shop, obviously, those are bad. Novatech hubs, man, I might go pick that out. La Habra, that's really far away. Anyway, so $300. Don't buy entry-level wheels. Make sure that they aren't stock wheels off of some mid-range bike, because they're going to look nice, but they're not going to roll. They won't have the money and tech into them that the mid-range, like you could find some really, like I'm running a set of DT Swiss, or these are Wilval. These are newer tarmac takeoffs, but these are SL, like a higher end takeoff than a lower end bike that has takeoff. So these are like 1,400 gram wheels, which is pretty light, but they have very, very nice DT Swiss hubs, and really you want those nice hubs. There are lots of nice wheels, or like these are really nice, sexy wheels, but I don't want $1,000 wheels because I am not that careful of a rider, and I ride on gravel a lot, and when I ride pretty hard, so I want some pretty heavy-duty wheels. And so for me, the mid-range, the top-end takeoff wheels are quite good enough. I do have a set of, my tarmac came with these Easton EA90 SLXs. These were like $1,200 wheels back in 2008, which was a lot of money for a set of wheels back then. But these wheels, I popped a spoke on mine. That's the other thing. So with these higher end, nice hand-built wheels, they're not as durable, so you have to replace spokes, which happened to me the other day. But these wheels are absolutely amazing. These hubs are unbelievable. They roll so well, and these are 1,300 grams, which is really nice weight. But the difference between this hub and this hub, even though these are really high-end hubs, is very different. But this is mid-range, this is high-end, and the high-end really is nice, but you have durability problems with breaking spokes and stuff like that. And some of the older rims, they're very skinny. These newer wheels are 20 millimeters wide on the inside, which is really nice if you like running 28s. Which is bigger tires, bigger wider tires are more stable and comfortable. The trend in cycling is going with big tires. That's one of the trends I think is actually cool that's happening right now. But yeah, so $300 on a nicer mid-range, mid to high end. If you watch Craigslist long enough, you can find all kinds of nice wheels for $200-300. So don't spend more than $200-300 on wheels. So the other thing is seating position. So seating position is super important. I just had a friend start cycling, and he hit me up and he's like, Jesus, like everything on me is going numb, this hurts to ride. And first thing in my head, I'd imagine that his seating position is all messed up. So what you need to do is go to YouTube and Google cycling seating position and watch some of these videos where these guys show you how to roughly get in the right position. This is super important. You don't want to be too far forward because your hands fall asleep. You don't want to be, in these certain positions because your feet will fall asleep, your hands will fall asleep, your butt will fall asleep, your wiener will fall asleep. All these things will fall asleep if you're not in the right position, and it'll make you hate cycling. You'll think, this sucks, this isn't fun, these bikes are uncomfortable, and you will likely not cycle for very long. So figuring out your seating position on whatever bike you end up with is like the first thing you need to do. Super important for the sustainability of your new hobby. Another thing, when I first started riding, I give my girlfriend shit for this all the time, but when I first started riding, she mentioned once that I needed to change my cassette to a bigger cassette. Most bikes come set up for flatland use. If you're going to be going up in the mountains and climbing eventually, which is something that is a big part, is like kind of a rite of passage. Once you get fit enough on the flatlands, you start going up into the hills and climbing, which is exponentially harder than riding in the flats. You're going to want the correct gears. And the cassette and the crank is how you change your gears. Gear ratios. So when I got my Roubaix, it had a 28 cassette, which in the pro world is like pretty average. It's a all around kind of mostly flatland, but a little bit of climbing cassette. If you're a pro, which these pros are able to put out like 3,000 watts of power at any time, so they don't really need big gears as much as us average folios do, who are stuck under 1,000 watts. So if you expect to go out climbing, you have to get a bigger cassette in the back. My 28 that I was running, I ran that 28 for probably 6 months chasing my girlfriend who had better gears and was a fitter cyclist. And man, I hated climbing in the beginning. My girlfriend is a pure climber, which means she only likes climbing. She's very petite, light, higher power to weight ratio. She is a climbing machine, and I was not a climbing machine. And I hated climbing, and I realized she mentioned I needed to get a cassette, but didn't really pound into me how important it was. So I went 6 months running a 28 cassette, climbing in the Santa Monica Mountains. I'm not, looking back in hindsight, I'm glad I had the wrong gears, because I got my base fitness from grinding up these mountains. And it was basically, using the 28 cassette was like going to boot camp, basically. It was very hard initial training. Then I switched to this 36 cassette and went riding, and was like, I looked at her and I was like, you bitch. Like, like she's like, I told you. And I'm like, yeah, you mentioned it, but you didn't explain how important, or you didn't drag my ass down to the bike shop and make me do it. So anyway, climbing was so much easier once I had the right gears. You don't go as fast, but your perceived effort is far less because it's getting stretched out longer or more gears. So if you do start climbing and you have any kind of cassette that is below the 30s, you're going to be dying. I went up as high as 42 on my Roubaix. We did a race recently, and there was a lot of climbing in the race, and I used a 42 cassette, and it saved my life. I can't explain how much easier climbing is with the right gears, or even with over-the-top gears. Like 42 on a road bike is bonkers, but man, it's like heaven when you're up on the long climbs, because you just kick back and you're just like, you spin faster. It's called cadence. It's a higher cadence. Putting out power on a bike is all about cadence. If you're grinding, if you're going really slow in the big gear, you're not putting out your highest output of power, because basically the bike's slowing your legs down. If you're spinning really high, you're able to put out that power because you're putting out more torque, so your horsepower can come out, basically. So having that high cadence and having the right gears is a complete game changer, and something you should definitely be aware of if you're out climbing. If you're running a 28 or a 25 or something, you're going to hate climbing. It'll feel like climbing up a cliff, basically. Or you won't be able to do it. You'll have to get off the bike, and getting off the bike is the whole opposite point of cycling. And I had to get off the bike a lot in the beginning because I didn't have the right gears. So gears, super important. Cassette and cranks. You can get custom cranks. Like here, I'm using an Absolute Black. It is a 4832, which is smaller than what comes stock on this. So this is made for climbing. This bike is a climbing machine. This bike is so light, and it has such nice gears right now. It is an absolute climbing machine. So that is gears. Another thing, high vis. A lot of people, they buy some of these cycling kits, and some of these cycling kits are really nice, and like everybody's buying black these days, but black is like not the color you want to be wearing when you're out on the street, with the cars. High vis, which is, like this yellow, bright ass yellow. High vis is really the best color for you to wear. So your first couple kits, honestly, really should be high vis, and you should try and always have as much high vis on you as possible. High vis socks, shockingly, are very, very visible. The idea of, if you're behind a guy on a bike, the thing that's moving the most is your legs. So if you have a big stripe of high vis on your ankles, you're seeing this bright color moving up and down, and you can see it a lot compared to the parts of your body that aren't moving. At least having, like, I only buy high vis socks. So having, a high vis helmet, high vis socks, high vis shirt, some sort of a lot of that bright, super bright green. That's a dope bike. And also, in the beginning, when you're picking your bike, aluminum is far more durable, so you're going to crash a couple times probably. Sometimes an aluminum bike can be better in the beginning, but aluminum bikes don't feel and ride as comfortably as carbon, and usually isn't as light. So, but yeah, back to that. Again, $1,000. You don't need to spend more than $1,000 for a bike. You shouldn't spend more than $1,000 for a bike, pretty much ever. I won't ever spend more than $1,000 on a bike, because the best bikes are from the past, and they're all old now, and they're all dirt cheap. So there's no point in spending a ton of money on a bike. You'll be scared you're going to break it when you're out riding, and it will take your quality of your workout away. So high vis, as much high vis as possible. Do not cover yourself in black and camo and all this stuff. As nice as all those kits look, you can't, you're not going to get seen, and people get run over. And unfortunately, a couple years ago, one of the most famous super endurance cyclists, dude got ran over on a race because he was wearing dark blue and black for some reason. It's just so frustrating. Dude was a really cool dude. There was a documentary team following this dude, and he got ran over because he wasn't wearing bright colors. That's not why he got ran over. But he was wearing dark colors, and he got ran over. The lady who ran over was just not paying attention. But he could have been more visible when he got ran over, unfortunately. But so bright when it comes to kits or bike color or anything like that, as bright as possible. So next two are nutrition and hydration. Obviously, hydrating is super important while you're doing any kind of cardio. Cycling, it's the most important thing. I don't like drinking that much, and I've really had to learn how to drink more. And what happened to me was we eventually did a race recently. It was a very hard race, one of the hardest bike races on the planet. in San Diego, and I didn't hydrate enough, and about halfway through I bonked. Bonking is when you hit a wall of where you just can't pedal anymore. And that's something that doesn't happen very often once you're fit. But I left the race not very hydrated, not not enough water. I started the race with, and had to stop and lost a lot of time because I had to stop for a little bit and hydrate and just chill and get some energy back, which is not something that happens to me usually. I'm able to ride up to 120 miles pretty much in a sitting without dying. So water is obviously super important. You need to have two water bottle holders on your bike with 2 bottles of water on any ride. Ideally, you want one kind of like hydration mix, Gatorade or something like that, in one bottle, and regular water in another bottle, and be drinking more often than you think you need to. The whole just drink when you're thirsty thing doesn't work with endurance cycling. You have to drink before you're thirsty, and you have to bring that hydration into the times that you're not cycling. You need to be drinking all day. You got to be basically peeing clear all the time. Peeing clear all the time is a huge thing for cycling. You will be able to ride farther than you'd ever imagine if you have your hydration correct and your nutrition correct also. Me and Allie are high carb, high sugar vegans. We eat a lot of rice. We eat a lot of vegetables. We eat a lot of sugar. We have a lot of fruit. We are not afraid of sugar at all whatsoever. Sugar is life. Sugar is energy. So if you're trying to ride 100 miles, you need a lot of sugar to be able to pull that off. So if you go on a 100-mile ride with no snacks and just a little bit of water, you just absolutely can't do it. You have to be eating the whole time and drinking the whole time. Being vegan is very popular amongst cyclists because any fat you intake sticks to you and is really hard to get rid of, where sugar, you can eat sugar all day and carbs all day and just piss out what you don't need, but you will have more energy and more power when you're out cycling if you eat a lot of carbohydrates and a lot of sugar. And I know that the powers that be have forced the idea that sugar is straight poison and carbs are terrible down our throats, but they're only poison and terrible to people that are sedentary, who don't work out. Humans are nomadic. We move around, and we're supposed to be moving around. If you sit in one place, you're going to die. So you have to be a sedentary. People argue about this with me all the time. Oh no, sugar's the devil. Sugar's the devil if you sit on your ass all day and you eat sugar all day. Sure, that's not the greatest idea. And it's likely too that if you're eating sugary things, that those sugary things you're eating are very fattening. And and then if you're not working off that fat, it's just piling up. It's very simple. But most people these days, I'm just gonna, I'm not gonna work out, and that's just never gonna work. Keto's not gonna help you. Keto's gonna make you stupid, and it's not a long-term diet. And right now, because of Netflix, there's this huge fad that fat doesn't make you fat, and that sugar is the devil. Sugar is one of the most important things that your body needs. Your thyroid runs off sugar. All the cells in your body run off sugar. If you deprive yourself of sugar, your body's going to break down. You'll break down mentally and physically. So, in my opinion, being healthy for humans is being the most efficient at enduring life. And so cycling is a really good example of that, on a macro level, basically showing, you're pushing your body to the limit, which is something you rarely do in life. And so obviously, if I can ride twice as far eating a lot of sugar and carbs, obviously that's more efficient diet for your body. You can there's a cool YouTube video where it's a documentary that was sugar versus fat, and it's these two twin brothers that this guy's following around. One of them is eating a high-fat diet, and the other one's eating a high-sugar diet. And it's pretty funny because they jump on bikes and they go right up this hill, and it's pretty much anecdotal, not very not super scientific, because they didn't have they didn't do it to hundreds of people. But if you do it to hundreds of people, you'll have this outcome. The guy with the sugar just blew the doors off the guy with fat. Fat you have to carry around. Fat is extra weight. If power to weight is important, and if you're trying to walk across the Sahara Desert in the heat, you don't want a bunch of fat. You want sugar and water and carbohydrates. So nutrition is very important, and to be peak ultra endurance, vegan, sugar, carbs, for sure. Okay, so a couple other things. I keep talking about the sustainability of your hobby, cycling, and all these things are kind of geared towards making your experience better and making you more sustainable and making more of a chance of you continuing to cycle. So riding with others is really important. Riding alone, while is cool, and a lot of people do picked up cycling to go out and be alone. My girlfriend loves being alone riding. She also loves riding with me, but I don't like riding alone as much. I'll go out riding alone, but I won't. I'll find, if we go ride some trails, me and Allie go ride some trails, she'll take, she'll pull 40, 50 miles out of me. But if I go ride by myself, it's shocking how hard it is to do 10 miles. We'll ride through a section one day and we'll be blowing through it, and the next day I'll go by myself and I'm like, why is this so hard? It's just much easier and much more fun to ride with friends. Also, there's an app called Strava. Strava's really cool. It basically makes anyone who signed up for Strava, it's a big competition, basically. It's basically everywhere you ride is a race. It follows your times through segments, and you can compete against yourself, and then it compares you to everyone else who's on Strava, and everyone's on Strava these days. It's like the Facebook of working out. So there are these things called comms that are King of the Mountain, which is like you have the fastest time through this area. There's local legends where you've been through this area more than anyone else, and it's really fun and very motivating because it makes it more fun, and you can win prizes. There are giveaways for they'll be ride 100 miles this week, and if you do, you can win a discount for some cycling gear or something like that, and then and it just makes everything a race, which makes everything kind of more fun. So Strava's really cool. Riding with others is really important, and Strava's really cool. And basically, the last thing of these 10, learn to work on your own bike. This is not very... most people are mechanically inclined, and I'm a career mechanic, and so it's kind of hard for me to put myself in the shoes of people who aren't mechanically inclined. But having your bike worked on costs about as much as having your car worked on. So learning learning how to set up your own bike and how to test whether or not things are working or not correctly will save you so much money. It's not even funny. One good resource, there's this GCN, Global Cycling Network. There are these cheeky British folios that have basically it's like a Top Gear but for cycling, like really well put together, really interesting stuff, fun stuff, but they have lots of tons of great information, how to set up your bike, how to test things, how to do your brakes, adjust your brakes. When you get a bike, if there's something wrong with it, just go to YouTube, learn how to fix that, and eventually, after you do that several times, there's only so many things that can go wrong on one of these older bikes, and any one of them is pretty easy to fix. So, working on your bike is like a really good way to learn how to be more mechanically inclined, because all this stuff is pretty easy, and that's coming from a mechanic. He's worked on cars and motorcycles his whole life. Like, bikes are very, very easy to work on. And all the adjustments that are done to the bike are quite easy to do. These shops are getting away with charging a lot of money for very low-skilled stuff. But anyway, so learn. Don't be afraid. And the biggest thing I've seen with people and doing mechanic work is having the balls to jump in and do it. And with YouTube these days guiding you, like, you basically have way more balls to jump in and do these things if you have a video showing you step by step how to do it. It's really easy, and it will save you so much money, because holy crap, is road biking an expensive sport. These are all very high-end, delicate carbon fiber that they just need adjustment, and you will drive yourself crazy going in and out of the bike shop, spending hundreds of dollars on a $1,000 bike just to get it tuned up right, when you could be using that as an using YouTube to help you do your own stuff. So anyway, that's it. That's the 10 things. 10 pieces of advice I would give you if you were getting into cycling. And then aside from that, just go out and ride your ass off. Don't worry about your bike so much. Make sure the bike runs right, but don't worry about shedding grams here and there, because it's not really going to make you faster. Like I said, changing the wheels will make you faster, but all these other things, you need to get your base fitness in before, it's like if you want to race cars. You don't go out and buy a Lamborghini. You buy like a Honda Civic, and you lower it, and you go to the track, and you go race. You just race and race and race. You get your experience from going out and doing it. Not, you're not going to get any better or any faster. I've spent so much money on these bikes already, doing little mods, upgrading from 10 speed to 11 speed. And after I spend the money and after I do it, I'm like, that wasn't really worth it. Like, I'm not any faster. Through this area, really, realistically. I mean, having an ultralight bike is definitely nice, but it's not really doing as much as you think it is. It's mostly just bike companies marketing and trying to sell you stuff you don't need. But anyway, I will see you guys later. Peace.